This is the GPL podcast, part of the Pull Tab Sports family.
Oh boy. Jupe making mistakes. I love it.
Out to center, picked off by Woog. Relayed ahead to Beetleborn. Centering it. Here's a shot.
Now, here's Jupiter and Vigo. Good evening and welcome to the GPL podcast, episode number 297. Good evening, Vigs. How you doing tonight?
Good evening. Doing well. We're almost through the midway point of the season for the Gophers.
Before we get too far, something that doesn't happen often happened last week.
And I think this is a game the Gophers can win. It's
All
just
right.
one game. They can just focus on one game. 3-2 win.
You got me all excited now. I don't know. I'm going to say overtime win. We did something right, Vigs. We did something right.
Yeah, I mean, I picked a win, and then you picked overtime win. I mean, 100% right on your part. You didn't throw out a score, so I'm
Oh, no, I'm not
knock you
that
a point
dumb.
there. But see, I had one parent come up to me and say, hey, show a little confidence for this team after the Penn State series, and they came through against Denver.
They did. Well, we've got a brand new guest tonight, don't we, Vigs? Someone we've never had on before.
Yeah, brand new guest. I don't know if people who have been following the podcast know how much of a fan we have in this guy. He gives us a lot of feedback on how we're doing, and we
He
appreciate it all. Sometimes we get updates from the club room.
And well, let's bring him in. Dan Woog, obviously son of former coach Doug Woog and a Gopher himself. Dan, how you doing, man?
I'm great. I reached out after listening to that last podcast. I listen to you guys religiously week after week, especially when I'm cutting the grass or driving home from work. Catch
Yeah.
that one, and I'm asking about the Powerball winners from you. So just throw it out there. But
Powerball.
don't anybody else.
Vigs, we don't get it right out often. Obviously, I'm going to flaunt it a little bit when we get the picks right. And it was only one game, too. At least it wasn't a series.
So much easier when it's just one game, right?
It is. It totally is. Well, Vigs, it was a good Saturday night for the Gophers. They obviously they started real well, even though that first period was terrible for them. They got the lead and they didn't break too much in that first period, even though that was 25-5 in shots.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about this over the year. This team needed to have moments like that and not let it impact their game where all of a sudden they're chasing plays, or they're giving away offense to the other team. You know, you need just to bear down, and eventually, you know, things can go your way. You can string a couple shifts together. Tanner Ludke talked about this. He's like, it's not going to be one play that gets us back in this game. It's going to take a couple, and we just got to stick to it. And I think we saw that from the Gophers at Ball Arena. You know, they got outshot 23-5, I think. You know, a lot of that's because of the power play time that DU got, but really just a nice period from Luca Di Pasquo and just a good defensive effort to weather the storm.
And Dan, that's the key there. They weathered the storm, yes, and they couldn't quite get out of the period with the lead, but that shot advantage was totally erased in the second period. It was pretty much even for the rest of the game.
Yeah, and that's generally when you're on the road, you're trying to weather the storm. Originally, the full energy, excitement for the home team, the Friday night start. You know, they're trying to feed off the crowd. I know this was a different arena. It wasn't DU arena, but sometimes you have to weather that. Again, as you guys all talk about, this league is very, very competitive. You know, anybody can win any given night, and if you get hot goaltending, you know, which they had, it could have been a different game otherwise.
It was quite the Luca performance, Figs, especially in that first period. It could have been 4-1, 5-1. The rest of the night, you could tell they tried to change their strategy by putting a lot more traffic in front of the net to make it difficult for Luka.
Yeah, I mean, it was a point of emphasis for both teams, I think, is to get traffic to the net. You know, you get through that first period and really you need some greasy goals to get going. And I think we saw both teams get to that part of their game. And I think the other part that was good for Minnesota long term, you know, they lost Leo Gruba in the first period, and they'll be missing him for the Ohio State series here coming up. Losing him is a big impact for the Gopher defense. It allowed Jacob Rombach a little bit more opportunity, John Whipple a little bit more of an opportunity to play, and I think those players delivered a good game.
Now,
I was just going to mention too,
Go ahead.
Part of that, what they were getting, you know, Pritchard's goal, little puck luck finally, right? The exact, you know, Moore shoots it from the bad angle, shoots it on purpose, low towards the middle right side of the net, pops out right on Pritchard's stick, right?
Yeah.
And to have a little puck luck like that is huge. And you know, I was going to mention that too, Viggs, is, you know, some you see all the time, whether it's with the Wild, it's that net front presence, right? And the guys that are willing to stand there, take the abuse. You know, Hendrickson's not afraid. Jimmy Clark's smart. He knows that's a good spot to go. Lamb does that. You know, Eriksson Ek does it constantly with the Wild. And it creates a problem for the goalie's vision, right? And then they're trying to figure out how to move, where to move. And whether it's a cross ice from, you know, Zuccarello to Krill or Mooney to, you know, Lamb, whoever it is. I mean, it causes problems with that guy in front of the net. You almost wish there was a stat for that. Every time you score when somebody in front of the net, and maybe there is that I'm not aware of.
well, Viggs, they were only 50% on the kill. They gave up one goal, but you know what? There was only 2 power plays.
Luckily for them.
Yeah. Luckily for them, there was only 2 power plays, but it's, you know, it's hard to improve your numbers if you're not in the box as well. But you have some videos here that I want to bring up and play that the two, just a little segment of each power player. And can you kind of describe what we've got going on here?
Well, I think what's really been impacting the Gopher penalty kill this year is the plays at the top of the zone. And where Gophers are getting trouble is they'll start sliding across, and you'll have 2 players try to do the same job. As you look, 2 players there try to stop the shot at the top of the point, leaving a flank wide open. And this is something that's been happening over again a lot. Here we see Ludke. He's the player in position to come block the shot. Lamb needs to fall back here and take away some of the shooting lanes from the flank and get to the net. And you see here, they both go to the middle, flanks wide open. Very difficult save for a goaltender. They get lucky here. The player misses the wide open net, but that's been something that's been happening in the Gopher penalty kill quite a bit. Miscommunications at the top. You know, your traditional penalty kill, you've got your box, you've got your diamond, and you've got your triangle +1. And figuring out when you go to that triangle +1, who is staying with the shooter and who's falling back to the net, who's covering the flanks with the shot blocking, you know, that's the communication that has to happen.
And part of it gets complicated a little bit, and which is a good thing to do when you're on the offensive side and the power play, is to keep that movement, you know, rotation of it might be a 2-2-1 or whatever, 1-3-1, whatever they're doing on the power play. But then, you know, you see it, they're always trying to move a little bit to create that shooting lane too. And guys just snap it. If they can get through the net, it's, again, net front presence that causes a problem. But it's the rotation too. And like you said, Biggs, is all of a sudden that shooting lane's wide open, right? Mm-hmm. There's nobody able to center up on that when we're not adjusting properly.
And in this second video, Biggs, it cost them.
Yeah, you know, Denver's power play has been deadly all year. We see kind of a similar situation where we have 2 players here getting out of position, both going to the shot, leaving that wide open lane across, and nobody there to block the shot. You know, that's been something we asked the players, you know, what needs to change. You know, you got to get sticks in lanes to stop the pass, or you've got to take away the shooting lane and take away those shots, because it's a lot to ask a goaltender to be moving all the way across back and forth on these without help from his teammates, because he's looking through traffic here trying to face this shooter. You know, it's hard for him to cover this shooter and the one on the backside, especially as he dives behind, and we've got 2 guys going to the shooter right there.
Yeah, so you can say when the pass came across, and you could see it clearly that they just both turned that way, And,
And unfortunately, again, this is Paulson and Lamb, two players we've been talking about having some issues here on the PK. It's one part of this team that's really got to change. We've been asking Bob about this the last couple of weeks, what the changes here. And he's like, one game, it's really good for us. And then the next, it's bad again. And it's just too inconsistent. And, he said, we're just going to sprint here to the midway point. And when we get back to the second half, there might be some personnel changes out there.
And sometimes part of the strategy on penalty killers is if you're having problems, is you're trying to force them to go one direction a little bit. If they go from the top and then it starts going to sideboards, that top guy can come at a little bit of a loop. So trying to avoid that pass back to the middle of the ice, danger area. Again, there's a lot of rotation that has to go on. And again, I think it's going to get better. I know it's going to get better. I think Steve Miller is as good or smarter probably than all of us. So it'll get better, and these guys are going to grow.
I do think Brody Lamb had a great weekend. Offensively, 5-on-5 on the power play. Like, he has attributes to his game where he's really making a positive contribution. It's just been on this PK. Maybe it's just not his feel, and maybe it can be simplifying for him in the second half of the season if they distribute this ice time to somebody else who can totally focus on their 5-on-5 play and their penalty kill, and allow Brody Lamb to focus on power play and 5-on-5. Because I think we've seen the last couple games, Lamb has been a lot more consistent about driving the net, sometimes being that sacrifice on rush chances, pushing the D back into the crease, creating space for passes, and then being there for chaos on rebounds. I think that's really the strength of his game.
Well, we're going to take a look at some of the goals here in a second. But for those of you listening to the podcast, we highly recommend go to our YouTube channel. You can watch us, and then you can see these videos and these demonstrations we're doing. Basically, we've been trying to expand more into the video. Obviously, we've been videoing for a while, but now it's not just listening. You got to watch some of the stuff, right?
Right. I'm not quite the play-by-play guy of Wally Shaver, so I'm doing the best I can here in my video breakdowns for everyone.
But aren't you doing this video for the junior or squirts and stuff you're coaching?
Yeah, a little bit. Yep.
Well, we'll kind of walk us through here. Here's that first goal, Vigs. Obviously, just, not a great place for the goalie to put the puck there.
Not a great place, but good place for Tate Pritchard
yeah.
to drive the far post. You always talk about that on the rush. You want a player driving the far post. Pritchard's there. He's ready for it too. His stick's down, so he's ready to pounce on the rebound, and a great goal for the Gophers.
Another advantage to driving that far post and getting to the net, whether it's the center drive or the wing, is if you need to chip it down low to keep the play going, you got guys going forward. The other guys are on their heels on the defensive side.
Yeah, it worked out pretty well for him there. And then we've got, what's the second goal here? It's going to come up here. Oh, is this the one where, Lamb holds on to it like you were talking about, Vigs? They went to the net. Look, there's the chance right there for you.
Yep, Jimmy Clark's driving the net on this goal. Great play by him. He's been a player who's sacrificing himself. Beckett's holding on pucks a little bit more. You talk about teammates, they're making plays that way.
And this is where, Denver probably made a mistake. It's 3-on-3. And they just left him alone at the top. The players going in, 2 guys took out 3 guys.
Yep. They didn't adjust over to Jimmy Clark because Jimmy Clark went towards the defense first. So he kind of had to honor him a little bit. And then Jimmy went to the other D and went to the net there.
And I believe this is Zemer's goal with a nice drop by Lamb there. Vigs, we've seen so many drop passes not go so well in a lot of years here. That's what it actually worked out pretty well.
Yeah, sometimes you have those fancy pants players so they can pull out the fancy pants plays. One thing about this power play is the rush up the ice wasn't smooth. Usually you see that second guy on the drop passes, they come up in the neutral zone, has kind of a clean entry. Denver does a really good job here of putting pressure at the red line and through the blue line. And it's a complicated play to gain the zone with possession. So I think kudos to the Gopher power play, which has really picked it up the last couple of weeks. I think the last 7 games, I heard Wally say they're clicking about 30+%, which is pretty good for a power play in college hockey.
They're in the 20s, like 23rd or something like that. So they've gone up pretty quickly here.
They count on the rush just like they do in zone setup, right?
They do. They certainly do. And then we know that Denver comes back in a strong third period, Vigs. But Minnesota, what a play by Hendrickson behind the net there.
Just
Finding
really
Hart.
good puck protection. I think that's what you're looking for out of Beckett and Javon. You know, two big forwards who can buy time for their teammates to find space. And really nice job by Jimmy Clark kind of disappearing up high here away from the front of the net, letting Brody Lamb get all that attention, and then just reading the space to fall into, and a great backhand pass by Beckett through the crease, just right on the money.
One of the angles you could see Beckett looking before he's starting to make that play.
He was
to that weak side.
Yeah, you really want your power forward to scan the ice in those situations. You know, the more pictures they can take of the zone, the better.
And then, you know, we've got another power play goal here, Vigs. Gophers were 2 for 2 that night. That assist right there by Brody Zemer, I think that should have been the assist of the week. They gave it to Beckett, you know, from the University of Minnesota, what they thought. But, 74 here. Wow.
Yeah, Brody Zemer can be a special player. You know, he's got some vision, some skill, some grit, some battle. This one's a little bit of luck as well.
True.
You know, as he slips it right through the Denver defense. You know, I think this is going between the legs on the pass and just finds LJ in the right spot. Again, a player ready to make his own luck.
And he knew, I mean, he knew LJ was going to be on that side. So it wasn't just, you know, a giveaway pass, right? He knew it, just happened to make it through this time.
So they didn't quite weather the storm, Vigs. Denver comes back, gets a goal with like 23 seconds left, tie it up, are dominating overtime until Mr. Moore here by himself. The only shot of the overtime gets the winner.
Drop pass, nice move there by Moore. Shot, score, and he wins it. Javon Moore. Gophers win it in overtime. Play by the freshman, Javon Moore. He makes a little dipsy-do at the blue line, comes in, and he's able to beat Miller to the short side.
So, Vigs, number one, there were a lot of Gopher fans there. That was a nice pop in overtime, wasn't it?
Yeah, good travel by the Gophers on Black Friday weekend. You know, get out to Denver and celebrate with the team. You know, I talked to Javon this week about that goal. He's very excited and he feels very good about himself going the second half. And I think if Minnesota is going to go places the fans want them to go, Javon's got to be a part of that. He's had a little bit of a slow start this year, but he says, you know, he's trying to hold on to pucks a little bit more, make better plays, and use his shot. You know, we talked to Jack Ramsey about Javon earlier in the year, and he said, you know, this guy can shoot the puck and he just has to find the right times to do that. You know, Javon had an earlier rush in the OT where his shot got blocked. You know, this one, he made a nice move, found some space, and was able to execute.
Don't call me Oliver, right?
Well, Dan, you know, we're having you on because it's going to be the 6th year since your father passing away. Obviously, beloved among all Gopher fans and hockey fans. So I'm glad you would come on this week. I do believe the date is December 12th.
14th. Yep.
14th. Sorry, my mistake. 14th.
I don't know if that was you or somebody else said that the same day. Like
it is. It is
Glenn
the
Sonmore
same.
passed away or something.
Yeah, the exact same day. But Glenn passed away in 2015.
Okay.
2 Gopher coaches. Obviously, you know, a lot of us don't know much about Glenn as a Gopher coach. That was before we were born or around that time. But then, you know, obviously as North Star coach, that's where I first remember Glenn, and then him on the radio, and then your dad on TV and your dad everywhere else. Vigs, it's just, what are the chances that 2 kind of icons died on the same day, just years apart? It's just strange.
Yeah. And for me, you know, both of them probably shaped some of my youth. You know, I would always listen to Gopher radio post games with my dad on the ride home. We'd walk back to the ramp and we'd hustle to get back so we could listen to Glenn, you know, pick his 3 stars of the game all the time.
He was a homer.
I remember going to a skating camp at St. Louis Park Rec Center, and Sonmore would come in there and, you know, give all the kids a head rub and stuff and talk to them and stuff. And he was quite the personality. And same with Doug, you know, just growing up listening to his game calls on MSC and all that. Remembering him on the bench when I was a little kid, standing on the bench to watch Pat Nicoletti go on his breakaways as he floated in the neutral zone.
Floated. Oh, you're gonna say that to his face when he's on the pod?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So, well, two great people.
Well, thank you. It's very nice of you, and we appreciate that. And it's those are things that take away some of the sting. Still, all these great memories. And you got a guy delivering a package to the house the other day, and he's telling me about when he met my dad. I mean, this is 6 years later almost, and he's like, he kind of put the name on the package, like, "Oh, are you so and so?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Your dad, I was at the Moments. That's where the senior housing or memory care unit was down in the south side of Buck Hill. That's where he was." And I mean, he had so many visitors. It was unbelievable. We're very thankful for all that. But he said, "Yeah, your dad tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, can you help me put my shoe back on?" The guy had no idea. He goes, "Okay." And then he figures out who it was. He tells me about it the other day. He goes, "Your dad was so nice to me," he said. And it just one thing after another. And again, we feel very lucky. But that was kind of his personality. I think it was very outgoing. Very, I don't know if energetic's the right word, but got fired up a few times, and might have grabbed his tie once and did that for the referees once, and down in Madison.
Oh, I remember that. I have a story. My friend Jen and I went up to Grand Forks when he would be calling TV, and it was a Gopher sweep that weekend, somewhere in the mid 2000s. So it turned out well. So we go to Sugar's. That was one of the hotel bars. Who comes in was your dad. We're like, well, we got to get a picture with the Wooger. And he knew us because we had seen him up at Suite 5 after games a couple times. Very itchy. And we got pictures with him. This one right here. Look at this fine picture. There we go. I had some grays, but I always keep that one out here because we've got podcasts. I get the Wooger with me. So he knew that we had a digital camera. And he runs into some old buddies at the bar. And he comes back over to Jen. He says, "Hey, can you take a picture of my friends and I?" So she gets them into groups, gets them all lined up, takes a picture. And then she looks at it. She goes, "Wooger, you got 3 inches on these guys." Referring to, he was actually taller than all his buddies. "You got 3 inches on these guys." And he pokes his buddy and says, she didn't say where.
Pretty witty.
And that's my Wooger story on the road. I will. There are others, but you can't say all the others. So
yeah, I think most of his players really enjoyed playing for him. Honestly, I think he had a good balance between, and I had that also in juniors with like a Mike Gensel and Tommy Ward. But they knew it when it's time to get busy and focus, but there's also a lot of laughter. A lot of fun. You want to be at the rink. You don't want to be, crabbing about things. And so it's, we might have had of age guys might have had a beer on the bus on the way back from a sweep in Duluth, but, he didn't have anything to do with it, but, I'm sure he probably knew about it, but we're of age. So especially me, I was really of age throughout this process, but I appreciate it. Thanks. And it feels good to hear, even more good stories. And I know, we all miss him, and I know his grandkids miss him, and we've got 7 granddaughters and 1 grandson. So if you needed somebody in crunch time, that was me. The last grandkid was a boy, Jake, named after his dad. So, and Jake and Wanda, his folks were at every game they could go to, and they were even in East Lansing when we won in the playoffs, and they kept the Burger King open. The lights were just closed off. They were in there celebrating our trip to the Frozen Four that year, but they had them reopen it, and they were dancing on tables, and they were just having a great time, and 70s, 80 years old.
Well, we'll always keep the Woogisms page up on GPL with stories that people have told us that they've heard over the years, quotes from when he was on the air and he said something on the air.
Probably not appropriate always.
Well, you know how it is, but people can always go to GPL and see these. I actually love this photo right here. I took that of him when he was doing one of those post-game on ice things a couple years back, or Actually, it was with Gorg, and he made
Yeah.
Gorg look really bad as a goalie on the ice. So
So I loved how they used to do that, and they take that
Oh, yeah.
time, a little pregame stuff, but then whether it's in between periods or postgame, and I think it's a chance for others that maybe aren't as exposed to the game as much to maybe learn some little parts of the game, and hopefully that would help somebody else. I think that's always in his mind as a past educator and geography teacher, and it's really education first and foremost, and teaching. And even when he got invited to coach for the North Stars by Pierre Page, leaving the University of Minnesota, and he turned that down. He's like, no, I like working with the amateurs. And so a lot of giving back, and we're continuing to do that, as much as we can now with a couple scholarships. And that was my quick change. That's my Gruba hat.
Yeah, I love the Gruba hat.
Leo, get better soon, right? So yeah, we've got scholarships for Luke Middlestat and Leo Gruba with our Woog Scholarship Fund, Endowment Fund. So it feels good. There are a lot of great young men out there, and it feels good to help them and see where they go.
One of the Woogisms that actually Frank Mazzacco talked about during his first retirement party down at Tom Reed's was talking about the World Juniors. And back in those days, I used to record all the games and digitize them and, put out some highlights until I got in trouble from Fox. But I did capture the audio that Frank loves to talk about. And here it is.
It's a lot better to fly from Vancouver than it is from Novosibirsk, I'll tell you. And the Novosibirsk is just on the eastern part of the Urals, folks. So
obviously misspoke when he said urinals, but that's why we love the Wooger right there.
Part of me wonders, is that a little tongue in cheek, or was it a misspeak? So
that's just
you never know with the Wooger. I
never
think,
know. Oh, and then I captured another one that happened. We all remember the famous 3-game series in Mankato, when they ended up 3 overtime games. But Wooger did drop this during one of those games.
everybody in the building standing except people in a wheelchair. Everybody's up.
People.
That's a
really
great
paints the scene. Yeah.
People should go to your page. People should go there and read some of those. There's some great stories behind there. The whole North Dakota one, when you're pulling up on the bus and they're throwing snowballs at your bus, and and he's saying he'd pay for that sign, that Gopher sign, because it's misspelled, and send the guy $25, but it's like $3 really, and the guy complains about it. So
that story's in there. That story's on the page.
More accurate in there than it is out of my mouth. But
so right before the broadcast here, I saw Gopher Game Notes posted some stats on you, Dan.
That's been a short clip.
one of them is this: you're one of 6 Gophers to score your first goal in overtime. Jim Carter, Tom Vanelli, Russ Anderson, Dean Williamson, Dan Woog, and Jake Peranto are the only Gophers to ever score in overtime. It was part of our opening clip was your goal in overtime. I've got the full video here. I'm going to play that. But not just you, but if some people watch towards the end when they're doing the rouser, you might recognize a current GPLer. Let me see if you could figure out who it is.
3:12 in the overtime. Mrozik out to center, picked off by Woog. Relayed ahead to Feeblecorn. Centering it. Here's a shot. What a beautiful goal! And the Gophers win! Boy, those South St. Paul boys know how to put it in the net in overtime. Danny Woog, 3-2 Minnesota.
Oh, what a goal was it? It was the presence of his mind to hold on to that puck, as we're going to see it again. But watch some of the jubilation that takes place as the Gophers have won in overtime. Frank, you just mentioned they had 2 big victories. Now they've made 3. It's been the unsung heroes that have come through. in the overtime. And Danny Woog scoring perhaps what could be his most memorable goal of his career as he puts it in the top shelf. A big victory for the Gophers as they go on to win and get 2 important points in those WCHA standings. His first goal of the season.
And career for the freshman. And you don't think Papa's happy?
So there's your career first goal, the overtime goal. And if you guys didn't recognize that last kind of fan shot there, Sean Sullivan, Gray Eagle himself, many, many years ago with his wife there. I think Gray Eagle's going to be retiring here soon from, but he's been a GPLer since everything began. So it was, I saw that video. I'm like, I couldn't believe how I spotted him because it was definitely him and his wife. So you had the first, one of 6 Gophers to score your first goal as an overtime goal. But then look at Gopher Game Notes also puts out that most assists on other players' first Gopher goals. You're tied for second with 6 assists on Gopher's first goals. You assisted Dave Larson's first goal, Casey Hankinson, Jay Mosier, Eric Rasmussen, Mike Lyons, and Dave Spihar. It's hard to read it. It's small. Yes, I know, but
I like all these goals against North Dakota.
Got 3 of them. And we thank Gopher Game Notes. He put this out right before our show started, so I had to make sure to get this on here. That's a lot. I mean, Hank, Rasmussen, Spihar, Lart. I mean, wow.
You'd think I was on the first line or something.
What, you weren't?
I'm sure I was a 4th shift up if we didn't get any power plays against us. But no, these are all great guys. And the first one on the list, Dave Larson there. It's a great story because he's a South St. Paul guy, just like I grew up too. We played youth hockey together, but our dads played youth hockey together in South St. Paul. And then they ended up, Dave and I, Larson, he had like 3 overtime winners or something in college. I mean, he had the hot stick in overtime. But he ended up, we played junior hockey together at the St. Paul Vulcans and then the U, and our dads played at the U together also. So it was kind of a pretty awesome opportunity that we, all got to participate in, and great family. And, just kind of like you guys, everybody's got to have a nickname. His dad's was Book, mine's Boomer, from the old days, but those are great memories. And I love those clips. Actually, I see those on YouTube, when if I was traveling for work and I'm in a hotel or something, I just pull up the YouTube and my dad's sister, Hetty, way back in the MSC days, especially, and then Fox, took those VCR tapes and she cut out all my shifts and put all this into one and then put it on a disc. I had all these discs. I mean, the hours and hours and hours that she spent, it may sound egotistical, but it's probably one of the best gifts I've ever received. And partly because I say, God, I wasn't very good, or that was a dumb play, or wow, that looked like I scored my 16th goal of the season. No, that was number 1, But pretty awesome. Great memories. Very, very fortunate. Again, I'm sure the goalie had no clue where I was going because I didn't either.
There's no book on you, right?
No.
Mary Chimene, he wants to bring back the Bumblebee jerseys. Did you like those Bumblebees?
I didn't really care. I mean, some of the kids and guys get into that these days. To me, I don't know. As long as it's got the M or the Minnesota name on it, that's all that meant to me, or the Gopher sign. And from the old rink, because I'm old enough that I played a game in the old Mariucci with all the light coming in one side, right, and the slanted yellow ceiling on the other. And we'd skate on Sundays when we were little kids. We'd go out there and have some open ice, and that was when Dean Talifas was around and some old names that were on the original coaching staff. And there's been so many good ones that have come through there with again, Mike Gensel is one of my all-time favorites. Super intense, but also a big kid. We'd have him for our Vulcans. And sorry if I'm getting off track here, but
No, you're great.
When Stan Hubbard, Channel 5 News owners, they owned the St. Paul Vulcans junior team, and Dad coached there in the early to mid 70s. So that's when we were born. He was actually coaching there, and he had a great story. Some of his teammates told me about too, or players told me about. And so there was Frank Serratori was one of his goalies, and Mark Mazzolini. And Mark Mazzolini, he's he's uptight about everything, probably what's on his dinner plate, whatever it is. He's, a great coach, great hockey mind. You couldn't relax around him, but great hockey coach. And so they're in the national tournament and they were stacked. Rusty Welch's team, who's ended up being my high school coach at South St. Paul from Hastings. He's telling us about, your dad got wind in the third or late in the second period. They were up 9-0 in a national tournament. So they are just stomping on somebody. And they listen, they hear coming down the end of the bench, the goalies, Sartori Mazzolini, chirping at each other. And they find out that it was going to be somebody had to buy dinner. The other one who lost the bet, whoever got the first shutout. Well, it was going pretty darn good at that time for one of the goaltenders. I don't remember which one. But as soon as my dad got wind of it as a coach, next shift up, whistle blows, next shift up, 4 guys, you go out. It's like, hey, coach, we need another guy. Nope, we don't. They don't score. 3 guys go out. Coach, we're short 2 guys. No, we're good. We're good. they got down to, I think, 2 players, and the team finally scored against them to break the shutout. Can you imagine what the parents would do these days?
Oh,
both against average.
Wow.
But, some lot of great memories, and again, very thankful. And I don't know if you guys, sometimes you guys are talking about the junior hockey, and I was a benefactor of that. I got to play 2 years, and so I was older coming in. And again, it's different because your friends already into college 2 years, 3 years basically. And so when they're out and they got real jobs, you're not there yet. But you know what? If you have this opportunity, like to wear that kind of jersey, I'll wait a few years to get on with a real career. But it's the junior hockey is amazing. The competition is crazy good. You got to basically play 2 years to play in Division III now. They don't really want to recruit you otherwise, unless you're a special talent that just doesn't have the desire to play Division I. I've been up to Saskatchewan twice already this year, and I ran into actually Brett Larson at the airport in September. So he was heading up to scout. He's St. Cloud coach. He was heading up to scout at Prince Albert, so north of Saskatoon. So my stepson.
Oh boy, there's nothing up there.
No. Nope. There is a ferry that goes across the water. So we went to one of the games, the Warman Wolverines, a new program that Steps on Hudson plays for. And the Billett family, who he lives with, said, "Hey, jump in with us. We'll ride to the game over to Humboldt." The whole history of the bus crash and deaths and all that.
Mm-hmm.
We leave Saskatoon. We go about 20 minutes. All of a sudden, we're going down the hill. Looks like we're going into the river. Nope. Stop there. Wait for the ferry to come over. Pick up 6 cars and go across, and then we get to the game. It just doesn't happen around here.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty amazing. There's so much out there. So many.
But you think, Viggs, Dan playing 2 years in juniors wasn't normal back then.
Not
and that
for
is
Minnesota players, really. It seemed like Minnesota didn't have as many junior players as other schools did. What was that process like? How many teammates did you have that played a year or two juniors on the teams you played with?
Not me. I mean, we had Bobby Dustin played before the season. I think maybe 1 extra year. Dave Larson. There was the Hillman brothers did some junior hockey. Mike McAlpine was another teammate of South St. Paul. Our dads were friends too. He played a year or 2 at the Gophers, and then after juniors and moved on. The McMorrow kid, his dad, the one from Denver, his dad was my left wing in high school, and then junior hockey together, won national championship together. Guys that were on Duluth, Sitlo, and others too. But no, it wasn't many. I mean, again, Chekos and Crowleys and Trebles, and they weren't all doing it, and it was different too. Now you got that draft, right? And in that day and age, it was the Vulcans had first dibs on players from certain teams. So they had the rights to the South St. Paul kids, to some of the Kennedy kids, Chris Markstrom, I don't remember that. Wyzetta, Derek Karlofsky, Edison, where Joe Disick was from, his goalie there, who went to BU. It was quite a bit different now. And again, that was the only main league that was out there, in the United States. So now there's all those.
I remember about that time I went and saw the Ted Brill tournament, where you have a lot of high school seniors playing an end of the year tournament. And I remember just seeing USHL scouts everywhere there, because at that time, a lot of players weren't tied to anywhere. And I don't know if a lot of the USHL coaches had seen all these players that were playing in this weekend. And I just remember, being such a Minnesota fan growing up, I knew about the USHL. I played in the Mike Foley summer hockey school, and Mike Foley always had tickets to the Vulcans to give away to the player of the day, and we just kind of didn't know. And now it's just like, that's the path. You have to go and you have to have success there before you advance.
Well, and with the Vulcans, we played it. All our home games are Sunday nights, right? So I think that was partially planned for all the college scouts to come in, go to their college games on the weekend, Sunday, watch ours, then fly out because, we're close to the airport and everything versus going to Waterloo or, we played Thunder Bay. They kicked the crap out of us physically. And, but you learn, you do those grinds and you toughen up and you get stronger physically. You got that time to grow and develop mentally as well. We had one game down in North Iowa Huskies down in Mason City, and it was great. We had Tommy Ward and Mike Gensel, our coaches, and Wardo's down at Shattuck St. Mary. He's been there forever now, and he's a staple there and great coach. He was a great baseball player too, but we were winning 5-2 in the game. But at the end of the second period, we got a little skirmish, me and Dave Larson, another guy, and it wasn't a major fight or anything, but it was enough. We got kicked out. So it was 5-2 going to the third period. We ended up losing in overtime 6-5.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And that didn't make Gensel happy. And everybody started coming off the ice, heads are down and getting to the locker room. And he said, take your skates off. And the guys started taking their helmets off. He goes, no, only your skates. Get in the bus. We're going now. We got back to Augsburg Arena at 1 a.m, and it was a crisp practice. But we were all, the three of us, we were laughing because we'd already showered up and we were going.
Oh boy.
But you learn to hate losing maybe as much as you love winning sometimes.
Yeah.
Kind of get the rewards of it. You can play cribbage and so forth and make some new friends. And it was a great experience. And the Hubbard family now brought that down to Albuquerque, New Mexico. They've got 2 different levels at the NAHL and NA3. And, again, just a passion for the game and for developing people. It's awesome.
All right, Viggs, we need to get to your top 20 here real quick. But before that, we need to talk about Gateway Fiber, Viggs.
Yeah, Minnesota, where the state of hockey and a bad internet connections, like a bad line chain, slows everything down, causes chaos, might even lose the game, especially if you're shorthanded because you had 2 idiots get in a fight and put you down going into the third period. But Gateway Fiber is here to keep your internet skating at full speed. They've been taking on big cable for years and have come to Minnesota offering faster speeds, better reliability, and customer service that doesn't sit in the penalty box. Gateway Fiber isn't just another provider. They're on your team. Visit gatewayfiber.com or call 888-201-4339 to see if Gateway Fiber is available in your area because life's too short for bad internet.
All righty. Viggs, your top 20 this week. You still have the Badgers up top, don't you?
I do, because those Wolverines are just dirty players, even though they beat Harvard and won in overtime. Wisconsin didn't play. I had Wisconsin ahead. I think they've maybe played a little bit tougher schedule, perhaps. I'm not going to make too much about the Wolverines beating Harvard and going to OT. They did go to OT against the Crimson, so that's probably something they didn't expect to have happen this last weekend. Michigan State also recovered from being swept by Wisconsin. They go and sweep Colgate. Nice weekend for them. I think we've got a big series coming up this weekend with Sparty and the Wolverines. So that should be must-see TV this weekend.
North Dakota, Western, still strong there. Duluth. It's Big Ten and NCHC till number 9 there, Viggs.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know what to think of the East. Very inconsistent. Quinnipiac goes to overtime with Holy Cross. That's not a very impressive win for them there. And then they play Stonehill. So kind of a down week there for the Bobcats and Rand Pecknold. Northeastern picked up a win against Brown. I like the Huskies, but we'll see what happens. I think the Bean Pot will be crucial for Northeastern to kind of get some momentum this season. but it's just hard to know what to make of ECAC and Hockey East. I listen to the USCHO guys break it down, and they're like, "Oh, watch out for Dartmouth, and watch out for Harvard, and watch out for Union." And I think only one of those teams is going to make the tournament at the end of the year. So I'll be watching out for one of them.
Minnesota State keeps creeping up as well there, Viggs.
Yeah, they've had a good weekend here, sweeping Northern Michigan. We'll see what the CCHA has at the end of the year.
Yeah,
if Minnesota State can stay hot, they can maybe get an at-large bid and not have to win the tournament, but they're going to have to play really well. The CCHA didn't have a great out-of-conference schedule this year, so they're kind of leading the pack.
When you got a hot goaltender, you can make it do some damage too there. That Alex Tracy kid.
Oh. Yeah, and Luke Strand has a system that really supports good goaltending. They don't have to do a ton. They have to make that initial save, and they have a lot of help. And I think we've seen the Mavericks over the years prop up their goaltenders who can make that big first save.
Anything else you want to talk about, the Colorado College back in there, Miami back in there? Because obviously, we know Miami had a strong start, then faltered a little bit, but now they're back up there for you.
Yeah, they won 2 games at the Friendship 4. RIT, who's a good Atlantic team. Union, who's one of those dangerous teams in the ECAC that UCHO likes to prop up, but they've had a good start. Give their program a lot of credit. They brought in a lot of new players there, and they're trying to change the culture. And we'll see what happens when they get into conference play, because it's not going to be easy for them going forward.
Well, hopefully they're not the bottom of the league like they've been for a while. They've been kind of kicked around for quite a while in the NCHC.
Yeah, it's been a rough go for the Brotherhood of Oxford. And just outside the top 20 is probably Minnesota. They're still 1 game below 500. They did get the win over Denver, but it was in overtime. As we talked about, there's a lot of good things going on for Minnesota right now, but they really need some wins here this weekend. I've been looking a little bit at the MPI compared to Cratch and Pairwise, and I do think the rankings at MPI weight that home road stuff more than ever before in these rankings for determining the tournament. And you look at the Gophers, they've played 4 road games, I believe, this year. So that's not helping them in the MPI, where I think they're still in the 30s. So winning these games at Ohio State coming up this weekend, really critical for them. They're going to have to get some wins here in the Big Ten on the road, I think, to boost their possibility of making the tournament.
Yeah, January is going to be a back-to-back-to-back tough.
Oh boy, a nice gauntlet.
Michigan State, and it's going to be a great opportunity too, right? I mean, to move yourself up and take care of your own business.
Pressure is a privilege.
Isn't it amazing how things change? BU's way down here too. BC's kind of middle of the pack-ish. Northern Michigan, winless?
Oh, yes.
1991 national champions. My brother was on that team.
I was going to ask you about that. That was my next question, actually.
Yeah, he actually didn't play. That was the one at the old St. Paul Civic Center with the clear board.
Yeah.
Right? He actually didn't play. He played more than half the games that year as a freshman. But when you have Mark Buffet, a 20-goal scorer on your 4th line, Dallas Drake, Billy Pye.
Pye, what a great name, too.
Brad Wenka, defense. I mean, all these guys had great NHL careers, or strong ones anyway. And
but he still gets bragging rights, doesn't he?
He does.
Does he still rub it in?
He never brings it out. But he's got the old competitiveness like my dad had. We play like tomorrow morning. You guys are going to keep me up past my bedtime, which is fine. We play every Tuesday, Thursday mornings at 6:30 in Egan. We get out there and just get a good sweat, have some laughs. But Northern Michigan's near and dear to my heart because that's where I got my only hat trick against. I'd never scored a hat trick growing up, and I got one. I think it was my junior year at Mariucci. We won those games, I think 10-0 and 7-0. But the great part about that is I get my first ever hat trick. I'm feeling great, feeling good. Not at the time thinking, maybe I'll be player of the week, right? But I didn't even play the next game. Saturday night, coach sat me. Somebody else got, so it's
what a jerk of a coach would do that.
No family favoritism there. And it was the right thing to do. Well, maybe not, but yeah, I guess.
It almost feels like probably having your dad coach is like the opposite of favoritism because they have to do it a little differently. What was that like, throughout your college career? The relationship's obviously a little bit different. We've seen lots of siblings where one will play for their dad and one wants to go somewhere else for a different experience. We see that a lot in college hockey.
I think Lucia had that too. Didn't he have a kid that went to Notre Dame too? And when they were talking about Tony Lucia being possibly recruited there, and I sent Don a note just saying, I've been there, lived through this situation. If he's a good fit, don't shy away. I mean, if he wants to play there, and Tony was a strong contributor, right? And held his own for sure. And I'm again fortunate that I, again, maybe stats wise held my own more than I thought I ever would, but take good pride in being a role player too. You want to block shots. You want to be on that penalty kill, give the Bonins and Crowleys and Miguel, these guys, the opportunity to rest maybe a little bit so they can be ready to go their next shift. And so that was a little bit of my strategy. I knew I wasn't at the high end of my group. And if I go out there, and even a buddy of mine, Eric Rude, who's coaching at St. Cloud, I think now assistant there, and he's Invergrove Heights, rivalry. But that's the greatest part about it. We all respect each other as the years go by. And, but I would try to grab him and try to mix it up with him and a bunch of players. So hopefully I'd go to the box for 2 minutes, but their best defense would go to the box for 2 minutes. I thought that was a great trade-off for us. We're always kind of trying to think through that a little bit. Normally a pretty good trade-off, but
oh boy,
some great times.
Yeah, that would still get me though. If my brother was coming up to me and saying, "Oh, look at this ring I have that you don't have," oh, that's just a little knife right in there. And but what a national championship game that was. That's still one of the craziest games ever.
Triple overtime, 8-7. McEachern's got 3 Gs, and unbelievable. What talent was out there, that BU Northern Michigan game. And
how was your dad during that game? Was he just full on cheering, or was it tough for him? Or how about you?
Well, again, we had that scenario, because we're in the same league then, right? Northern Michigan, Minnesota, right? Well, who else is in this game? Mom is, right? So, she's got her 2 boys playing against each other. Yeah. I actually got him once. I was on a forward check into the off zone. I went like this and kind of went up and caught him off the chin, my brother. And not that I was trying to, but he was wearing green. He was wearing green and white. And
well, yeah,
I got beaten up so many times by trying to throw the hit. But if you can dislodge the player or steal the puck or whatever it is, that was what I felt was my job. But Mom, was asked how many times, when we go playing, and she's quoted by whether it's the old Charlie Walters or maybe Greg Wong, right? Those old names.
Wonger, yeah.
Wonger. And, well, who are you cheering for, Jan? Well, I'm cheering for who gets the paycheck. Jan's not making me any money. Steve's got a scholarship, though, so that's good. But hopefully Doug continues to get a paycheck. So, flight attendant job doesn't pay great. Coaching job, I don't know if I sent you that picture the other day. $52,000 was the salary for my dad back in late 80s or something. And again, that was probably a lot of money at the time. We got a $2,200 bonus if you won the WCHA championship playoff. And maybe that's how we got to go on spring break,
Viggs, didn't you have to remind Motzko of a bonus that he missed?
Yeah, because they had the tiebreakers on like point percentage instead of
Wisconsin?
instead of the raw points. And if they would have done it just a little bit different, Minnesota would have gotten the title instead, and he would have gotten the paycheck, and he hadn't even thought about it. So
yeah, but that was also like a 30 grand check though.
30 grand. It's it's gone up since the 80s.
I got a chance to see Bob 2 summers ago, I think it was, up. So, he's got a place up by Gull Lake up there. And we're in Pequot Lake's been there since 1934. My dad and his dad and so forth. That's our family group there, my brother, and they got the next door cabin too now. But I was on the jet skis with my wife, Danielle, and we're going through the little channel. We went on a Nisswa Lake right off of Highway 371, where little shopping areas. And we're going through a channel, and I'm like, gosh, this guy in front of us in this pontoon, man, damn, I wish he would get moving a little bit. He's chugging along, and there's another couple in there, and finally he slows down. He kind of comes to a stop, so I weave around. Again, it's in the no wake zone, but I weave around and I look over. Oh, hey, Bob, how you doing? What's he doing? He's stopping to talk to Reed Larson. So it's such a small world. Small world, and so many good people. And I watched some clips of Reed Larson the other day from, I think it was in 1975. Again on YouTube, national championship game against Michigan Tech, and boy, he was a heck of a player.
Oh yeah. Well, before we get into OSU this weekend, Vigs, Cub Foods, Cub came through for you for Thanksgiving, didn't they?
Yeah, I had a great Thanksgiving meal thanks to Cub. I got all my ingredients. I always tell people, if you must get something on your shopping trip, Cub's the place to go. They've always got things in inventory. And if you're looking for things for fall, for winter here, I think we're going to get some 20 below wind chills. Maybe you need some hot cocoa and marshmallows. Cub's got you covered. If you're still looking for those, seasonal apples and caramel dips, go in that produce section. They're all right together. So Cozy Night In is like a number one thing to do here coming up. So Cub has the flavors that make fall or winter, if you like fall or winter. So swing by your local Cub, stock up on all your seasonal favorites, because nothing says fall in Minnesota like comfort food from Cub. Shop happy.
All right. Of course, we thank Gateway and Cub for sponsoring the GPL podcast.
Well, Cub Foods is about a mile down the road here, if that, from my house.
Yeah.
And with 6 kids, and I have 6 kids, and we got Ellie, Carlin, Jake, Hudson, Haley, Colin. We're there 2-3 times a week. It's you're running out of bread. Make a run for it. You need some donuts for me. Let's go. So I got that on autopilot.
Cub is Boomer approved.
Yeah, I live here in Northeast. And I'm a mile away, so it's just a simple little walk. Hopefully, to pick up things and get them back up the hill. So great little spots.
Ohio State this weekend, Vigs. They started pretty good. They were in your top 20 for a little while. I don't believe they're there anymore, are they?
No, they're not there anymore. They've struggled just a little bit here down the stretch. They got beat up pretty good by Michigan this last weekend, where I think Michigan scored 7 goals on them one night and 5 the next. So tough start to them here. They just lost 2 games in OT to Arizona State. And when we're talking about the Gophers playing Ohio State, the Gophers really only get 1 practice coming back from Denver. I don't know if people listen to the availability, but they got stuck in the airports for a little bit as, the first night their pilot timed out by 4 minutes. They had a plane where they didn't have enough staff to fly out. They had another one where the navigation thing went out. The pilot said that's the first time in 29 years that's happened. So they didn't get back until late Sunday night. And then they took Monday off, and they had kind of a light practice on Tuesday, and then they flew out Wednesday today. So
and had practice when they got
for
there.
them.
Yeah.
Yep, they'll had practice when they got there. So tough week. Bob said, luckily for Minnesota, they've played a couple teams that play a similar style. Notre Dame, LIU play kind of that neutral zone 1-1-3. I think that's what we'll see this weekend with the Buckeyes. Roleck often has these teams that have to learn the systems a little bit throughout the year, and they're always getting better as the year goes on. So it's going to be a tough matchup for Minnesota. You hear the term rock fight quite a bit with the Gophers for this weekend, and that's what they're going to have to execute.
Just to quickly jump in here, Andrew Carlson talking about Reed Larson cracked my dad's sternum with a slapper in high school. Ouch. Wow. That's crack your sternum on a slap shot? I may want to. Of course, next time he came down the ice, he probably backed away quite a bit. Or all players would. So Ohio State, did you ever get to play against Ohio State? You probably never did you?
No, we never did. There's a number of teams, that we would have played then, not now. Alaska, Anchorage, those trips were kind of fun. Sometimes we'd leave Wednesdays to go up to Alaska. And I know one time we went through, I think it was Seattle, stayed the night there, continued on the next day. The bus pulls into town. We see 2 rinks on the outdoor rinks side by side, a bunch of kids playing out there. And my dad said, "Hey, guys, let's go grab our stuff and get out and have a little practice time." So we hit the outdoor rink in town, and all the kids kind of gave us one rink, and then they all mingled together and played together, and again tried to create a fun environment there. But no, we didn't get a chance. I mean that.
Yeah, they were in the
nice.
CCHA. Yeah, and you would have been part of the college hockey showcase though, which was still one of my favorite. That's what started the rivalry with Michigan for me.
Yeah, and I hate it when you talk about the Michigan, because I was in that game on the bench trying to figure out what the hell just happened.
Phrasing, Jupe. Phrasing.
Hey, I was talking about the college hockey showcase, not the overtime loss with Mike Legg.
Thanksgiving showcase. Oh.
Yeah, it was so fun because it first started at all the big arenas. You're at Civic Center, you're at Bradley Center, you're out at
Lewis.
Joe Louis, and there was big crowds.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember you one year there was at St. Paul Civic Center, and I think Bonin won it late in the game, and it was packed house, 18,000 people for Michigan, which we hadn't really seen much in the previous decade since they had left the WCHA.
Yeah, those days with Brendan Morrison and Mike Legg and Marty Turco in goal, and I mean, they had some phenomenal players.
So I think that's Veeks. That's always kind of helped me with teams like Michigan and Michigan State, because those were great games during the season. They didn't feel like exhibitions at all. Oh. Ohio State, I think we still need some bad blood with Ohio State before it becomes more of a real rivalry in hockey.
Yeah, Ohio State is one of the teams where it just kind of seems like difficult games, but not anything that's approaching rivalry. I think one of the big problems in this matchup is that the fan support for the Buckeyes just isn't quite the same as some of these other programs. They don't have a Children of Yost, kind of group to follow them around. So I think that's always been challenging. And I think with, this weekend, it's going to be a little find your own juice kind of stuff for the team. And I think for Minnesota, it's going to be important for them to generate their own energy and have 2 productive games with the short turnaround, probably a building that won't be very full. It's going to be a challenging environment, a game that's going to be a rock fight, and it's going to have to take some discipline.
Yeah,
what do you think, Dan? Yeah.
Well, it's got to come from within, and when you're going the road, when it's kind of a quiet arena, you can't feed off the negativity of the arena like you could maybe at Wisconsin with the Badgers and telling you what bad people you are. And my mom quit going to Wisconsin. She couldn't go there anymore. Even when I was playing, she just said, I can't take it. But not to say I have some great friends that played for Wisconsin too, and North Dakota and St. Cloud. And so that hockey fraternity stretches, but they have plenty to play for. So there's don't have to say a whole lot to say, here's what's at stake with these games, and I don't know who says that, the ones at the beginning are just as important, the ones at the end, or vice versa. They're all important, and we need the wins bad.
I mean, I'm just going to say, you win 2 games this weekend. It puts you in contention right back up there in the Big Ten race. It also fulfills kind of those wins on the road that you were just talking about earlier. So this is huge.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get right back to, is the Gophers need some road wins for their MPI. It's weighted heavier in this new format and this new math. You have to win a little bit on the road. I think one of the things the coaches always talked about is they didn't want teams buying their schedule and buying their way in the tournament and buying regionals. They're trying to put some levers in to neutralize that a little bit. So it's really critical for Minnesota to win. I think Ohio State's going to be one of those teams in the bottom half of the Big Ten. So these are probably some of the easier road wins potentially. I told Bob, Ohio State probably doesn't have the record that they want. He's like, I don't look at their record. I guarantee you some of the players have peaked at the standings and peaked at the schedule and know that this isn't a team that's had a lot of success, but that's not going to matter. They're going to have to play their A game. This is a team that can't outscore their mistakes very often, and I don't think Ohio State's going to let you do that either.
No, they're well coached. Rollick's been around the block for decades, and it's just they're going to keep building, like you said. I think they get better as the year goes on too, and I think Minnesota's on that same path. And I'd expect to have pretty tight games this weekend. And I think they had, who was at Penn State on the ropes. I think Ohio State or somebody, and then let them in late, and then they got scored on later again or something. So, I mean, like I said, any given night, you got to bring your game.
What's your pick, Viggs? What are the point distribution this weekend?
I think the Gophers get 5 points this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be easy. I think one of the games is going to OT, and they're going to drop one of the points there. But I think they do get an overtime win, and they do get a regulation win.
5 points. That's a successful weekend, I would say. What do you think, Dan?
I was actually thinking the same thing, but I know, Jupes, you're the one that predicts everything right too. So
No.
I guess I can't go with the same, right? But that was what I was.
You can do whatever you want. It's whatever
you can get specific. You can say which night.
A win and an overtime loss. We'll go that way.
Oh,
Sorry, boys.
4 points. I'm even more negative. I think it's a split. I think hey, sweep somebody on the road, and then you'll get me on board. It's just Viggs, we've seen it. We just haven't seen that consistency. It was different last weekend. It was a one-off game. So right now I'm saying split. I'm glad I don't think Mote's watching live, otherwise he would have gone after me, but he'll go after me later. So I'm saying split. But I would definitely be happier with something better. So
that'd be great going into the break, and and some guys getting ready to go off to other teams with the World Juniors, and that's gonna be awesome. We're gonna go to at least one of the USA games and in St. Paul, and at least one Canadian, because my stepson's a dual citizen, so we're gonna go to a Canadian game too while he's still in town. So love it. We're lucky we're in Minnesota. We got all this hockey to go to or to coach, as Viggs does too. And I did 12 years of that, and a couple with the boys, a lot with my girls, Ellie and Carlin's teams. And it was a highlight. And to be able to give back like you're doing too, it feels good to get respectful kids that are, hopefully they're learning more about other life lessons. Things aren't always going to go your way. That was one of my dad's kind of towards the end of the years. We had him with our U12A team, and we called him our unofficial advisor, consultant to our team, because he had two granddaughters. He had Olivia and Carlin on the same team because we had come up combined organizations, Embro Heights and Egan, for the right numbers to be able to have an A and two Bs, have the right amount of goalies, all those challenges in youth hockey that aren't so fun. But it was pretty awesome to see him get a chance to come to the locker room after you're upsetting number one team and over in the cake eater tournament after he comes in, puts his arm around big ass grin. And one of the best parts about that was the Andover team was number one all year, basically. And their parents bought them donuts because they were expecting to win that morning against us. But when they didn't win, they gave the donuts to our locker room.
Hey, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I like that.
Well, and also like Hankinson, Casey, he's helped coach over the years with his daughters too. I mean, there's a lot of guys. I'm not sure if Jeff Moen, Jesse Burgley as coach. I mean, a lot of guys we played with got involved, and that's great because, again, good quality people that know the game hopefully can help develop these kids too, and not necessarily focus exactly on winning and losing, is developing and having a great experience.
Well, thanks for coming on the show. Are you ready for some overtime with us?
I'm ready. It's more than 5 minutes, right?
I hope so.
Yes, it will be. But definitely thanks for coming on. We had a lot of great stories, and we're going to have more stories coming up in overtime. But a really big thanks for you to come on the show.
I appreciate it. I enjoyed it. I love listening to you guys. Like I said, I'm religious every week. You guys got great people on there. I just want to make sure if I talk more than Pat Micheletti cut me off way sooner.
No, that's not possible. I don't think.
I text him, and it's awesome. He's doing better, obviously, with his health situation. Yes. I sent a note to him the other day too, and again, even though our ages are this apart, I grew up in it, right? I mean, I grew up in 1986 when Dad started coaching. I was in middle school or so, and we were there every weekend. Every weekend we're there, and tickets were only about $7 too. But
I wish that was still the case. But,
great experience, that old rink. I do miss it. I think it was a great ice sheet, and walking up those stairs, still would give you chills to today. So
Yeah, and Nick Angel will disagree. He hates those stairs. Any stairs.
Well, Nick could get on the Stairmaster a couple times. I know. I've seen that. Nick's the best. Nick's the best, and I'm so excited about what he's working on. With the
we'll get into that a bit in overtime here.
It's awesome.
But thanks for coming on. That is going to do it for this episode of the GPL podcast. This is kind of our half season end. We'll be back in January with a brand new show. So make sure you come back for that. We may be doing some things for the World Junior Tournament. Not sure yet. Might be just do quick little shorts for the Junior Tournament. We'll just have to wait and see. But for those of you watching live right now, stay tuned for overtime. For the rest of you, we'll catch you in January on the GPL podcast. If you are watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and get notified each time we go live or post a video. If you listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please rate our show and leave a review. For those of you watching live, you know what's next. It's Vigo's Beverage of the Week. It's time for overtime.